You may be familiar with the phrase for collage as painting with papers, and that is what I'm working on this week as I develop my skills for a very large piece and share my process with you. You'll see how I start, how I work through the hard parts, and how I know when to stop, plus all the little details that matter when layering papers in a painterly way. I'm Jackie Bernardi, and welcome to my studio. I've been working on this series for the past month and a half to 2 months, and the series is on the subject of an oyster. And the reason why I'm working on this so intensely is because over the winter I am going to be working on a 6-foot oyster work. It's likely to be a mix of painting and collage, and so I'm experimenting in every single way with both. So today we're going to be working on the collage aspect. And what you're seeing here, the outline that you see, was actually an outline that I drew in Procreate. I printed it off on a piece of medical exam paper, and then I used matte medium and water to lay it down onto the very highly textured background so that I would have a workable outline to start the collage with. I don't always start collage with an outline, but in this case I did because one, the background was so highly textured, and also this is this collage has more of a sense of realism to it than most of my collages. Most of my collages are highly abstracted collages and don't represent anything identifiable in the world. This one is intended to be recognizable, and so I did want to have some guidelines, let's say. So I'm looking through my papers trying to find a starting point. Oh, I loved this paper. That's tissue paper, and that was a really fun video. As I think of the videos where the paper came from, I will try to list it in the description below, but you can pretty much go through my library of videos here on YouTube and you'll find almost every single paper that you see here was painted on one of the videos. So here I'm just going to start tearing strips. Somebody in our community wrote last week, and it was such a great tip, and I loved it, so I'm going to share it with you. And she said that the way she gets past being precious about any of her painted papers to use in collage is as soon as they're dry, she just tears them down to a smaller size. So they're already, quote unquote, broken, they're torn, right? So you're not going to be precious about whether you use that paper or not. Visually, it already looks like it's been used. So don't let how much you love a piece of paper stop you. Go ahead and tear some from it and you'll be able to use it in everything. Great tip. I wish I could remember who sent that to me. I apologize, but I loved the tip. So I am just going to start here by laying down colors and shapes that make me happy. There is not an intention at this point of keeping within a photorealistic color scheme. None of that. In fact, I'm laying down this hot pink and aqua blue painted paper. I love this paper so much. I'm laying this down first as a way to get me to loosen up and try not to stick to some photorealistic version of an oyster. That's not what I'm trying to accomplish with this collage. And in fact, I want it to look more painterly, yet still super collagey, if that makes sense. That might be a Jackieism, so let's just leave it at that. And so I'm just going to start layering up shapes that manage to stay within the confines of the shape of the oyster as an outline, but not hemmed in by it either, if that makes sense. Like, I don't care if I color outside of the lines here, right? If I don't like it later, I can go back in and fix it. But at this stage of the collage, I don't want nonsense like that getting in the way of me discovering something new or cool or creating a new idea for the direction of this just because there are lines. I am somewhat of a rule follower in life, but when it comes to creating my art, I am not. An important thing that I want to bring up here. My process in creating collage largely is to tear paper. I'm not much of a cutter. I'm learning to like cutting. It's just a practice that I just don't love it. But I do love tearing, and I find that I enjoy the quality of the collage when I tear more so than cutting, for me personally. But if you do collage art and you love cutting, everything I'm doing here today, almost everything I'm doing here today, will work perfectly whether you cut it or you tear it. Your your process for collage in terms of that does not matter. It really doesn't. I just don't enjoy cutting, so I don't use it very often. What you saw there when I did use the shears, it was really just to cut down the size of paper because it was a very large piece of paper. Another thing that you may be noticing as I'm going through in these early stages is I'm jumping all over the place on this piece. One minute I'm working on the oyster shell, the next second I'm working on a lobe of the oyster, then I'm going up to the neck. It seems like there's no rhyme or reason, and that's because there is no rhyme or reason. As I look through my stash of papers, and what you can't see on camera right now is I'm constantly looking over at the papers. I'll see a piece of paper and I'll be like, wow, I like that, and I think that would be great there. And so I stop what I'm doing and I move over to the next area. Again, this is a Jackie process. You may need to be more orderly, and that's just fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just a little shoot from the hip when it comes to this, and I like it. That makes me comfortable and it excites me. So work on one area of your collage and then move on to another, or just work all over the place. For me, my brain seems to connect better when I am trusting what my gut is telling me to do next. And I'm just adding a couple more pieces into it to make it, I don't know, more textury. Part of the things, one of the things that I love about this process is it's the back and forth, it's the push and the pull. It's making decisions based on the papers I have, based on the space that I have, based on the creativity that I have on that day. If I did this yesterday, it would have been a completely different piece than it is today. Now, as I am still at the very beginning stages of this collage, I'm largely focused on creating the shapes, but not exclusively. So as I determine areas that will be covered by paper and so on, I still want to keep a sense of depth with the collage as a whole and the subject as a whole. So what you just saw me do there is put down some darker paper to create shadow or depth or recess in this piece, knowing that I was going to go over it largely with other papers, but that I needed that recess. So I wanted to get that dark down there early. It could get covered up in today's process, but at least it's there now. So I know that that is an important, that's an important quality to me, and that I won't forget it later. And this piece here that I'm laying down right now, I don't know if ultimately it was a mistake to lay this piece down now because I do love it so much. This piece of paper is a piece of wet strength tissue paper that was painted with inks, and it is gorgeous, but it's not gorgeous just because I say it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous to me because it is exactly the right piece of paper for that particular place on the oyster. And we're still just in the beginning stages. And what I'm concerned about is the thing that makes that so special is going to get lost as we go on. I kind of wish I had waited to use that piece of paper. So this is a game that I think maybe we all go through as creatives, is second guessing ourselves on the choices we make and when we make them. Now, what makes that piece of paper more unique than, say, any other paper that might look great as the shell is that that paper has a very translucent quality. And I would have probably liked to have saved that for a later part of this process. But what's done is done, and I will make the best of it. And maybe that piece of paper will be seen at the very end of this. I don't know yet, but we'll wait and see. But I also want to say it's okay to second guess yourself. Here's the thing about collage, more so than maybe any other style of art or form of art that you could be working on. Collage to me is like a puzzle, and not in the obvious way, not that you've got certain pieces that fit into very specific places. That's not what I mean. What I mean by it's a puzzle is that, like when you're doing a puzzle, you're constantly moving the pieces around and spinning them around and trying them in different places until you find exactly the right spot. And for me, that's what this style of collage is like. It's a mystery. I could pull any piece of paper, any color, any shape, bring it over here to the collage and maneuver it just like a puzzle piece until I find the exact right place for it. And sometimes I won't find the exact right place for it in that moment. So I'll put that piece of paper to the side. But it's like that. And this is why I also think that painting with papers or collage is such an incredibly valuable skill set to learn, because it teaches you how to think critically within your creativity. And I don't know that many things that really do that. I mean, I suppose if you were working on a piece using the Fibonacci sequence, maybe that would. But this is a very practical and easy way for anybody to explore their creativity while thinking strategically. What will work here? What will create depth? What will create highlight with papers on this particular piece? That's exciting to me. And I say this with, I think this anyway, with almost every video. This would be the video I would start if I was just starting out as an artist, right? Because it's about the permission to explore and experiment even while you are working directly in the piece. I love that idea. Okay, technically I wouldn't really suggest this maybe as the first art video anybody ever saw, but if this is your first, welcome. But I guess the point really, what I'm trying to say is that I believe that creating art, no matter how you create art, really starts with your ability to be discerning with your own limitations and moving beyond them. Right? Not letting yourself get stuck in the, I don't know if this is going to work out. Look at this. This right here is a perfect example. I'm laying down a piece of aqua blue paper to edge out the oyster shell. Now, have you ever seen aqua blue on an oyster shell before? No, you haven't, and neither have I. And that's not the point. The point is that I am allowing myself to explore with what that might look like and how that might inform the rest of the piece. I think it's kind of exciting. Will it stay? Who knows? We don't know yet, but I like it for right now. And the way that I like it is encouraging me to be less literal with the coloring of this oyster and more playful. I'm going to say one mistake that I made while working on this collage that's important and relevant to what I'm talking about right now is I had the other painted collage, excuse me, the other painted oyster right next to it and visible the entire time. And these are not twin oysters by any stretch. They're the same size, but they're not twins. And very frankly, I should have covered up the painted oyster because I found myself constantly looking over at it to see if I did it right. Right? Like if my shape was right or my shadowing was right or whatever. And in retrospect, I think that I would have been much freer and much more liberated with my color choices had I not had that reference exactly there right in my face. Uh, it is what it is. It's fine. I'm just suggesting this to you. If you really want to get experimental and you're working on something that has some realism to it, maybe just keep a sketch of it near you and not a full-blown painted piece or photographed piece so you can check whether you're doing it right or not. I encourage you just to go for it. Throw spaghetti at the wall and see what works. I think I'm going to be fine with it regardless. Just I can recognize that I was a bit creatively hampered because I kept comparing it to what was more realistic. This piece of paper here is from way back, and I will definitely put the link to it down in the description. But that was, again, some of the wet strength tissue paper. That was how to work with wet strength tissue paper. The video came out over a year ago. And it's one of my favorites. It's also one of the crowd favorites in this room. So I'm going to put it in there. You're not seeing very much of the paper right now, but my gosh, was that fun and gorgeous. I mean gorgeous. Now, I just did make a mistake, and the mistake that I made was that piece of paper that I just laid down next to the aqua blue strip. That paper is not going to dry transparent. And the reason why I thought it was, I actually thought it was medical exam paper. It's not, and it's actually deli paper. And when I put it down, I put it down because there are these little white hatch marks on it that you can't really see here. But once it's dry, you might be able to see it. I don't know. But I wanted to put it down on top of the aqua to add like a highlight to the edge of the shell, the oyster shell. And once I put it down, well, really not once I put it down, later, I realized, oh my gosh, this is going to dry not transparent. It's going to dry barely translucent. And so now I have a weird shape on the outside of my shell that doesn't belong there. And that's not going to be that easy to fix. So I could either extend out the shell to meet that, which I may do, or find a really clever way to paint around it, because if I don't, once that's fully dry, it's always just going to look like I missed a spot on the collage, which will make me crazy. I don't know why I'm telling you all of that, but I just wanted you to know that I make mistakes when I collage, and I learn from them. So you can bet I'm never going to use that piece of paper for a highlight again. All right. So now we're past the middle section of the development of this collage. And as I'm tearing pieces of paper. I'm being more cautious-ish about the shape, about the size, about the pieces of paper that I'm selecting, because we're now getting to layers that will be seen, or potentially more seen than the underlayers. And so I am using more discernment in what I choose. And you can see that here with this itty bitty tiny piece, skinny piece of dark, dark paper. And I'm putting it here because there is not enough contrast or depth between the meat of the oyster and the shell. And I really wanted to bring that out. So that's one of those teeny tiny details that make a really big difference in the final look of your subject or your painting. Now, this series is going to culminate in me working on that giant painting. And if you want to make certain that you see my process for working on that painting, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because you'll get a notification when that goes live. It's not going to be for a while, but there's going to be lots of good stuff between now and then. But you will get notified when I do that, and I don't want you to miss it. It's going to be very, very cool. Also, you could subscribe to my mailing list, and then you would be notified by email anytime I have a new video out. So what I'm doing here is I put in this large sort of triangle shape of that darkish blue paper. And I don't really want to see all of that dark blue paper, but I needed to lay it down now, because as we're getting to the final, or the upper layers, I should say, of this collage, it's going to be harder and harder to create depth and dimension. So I wanted to lay that down now, and I will go over it with lighter pieces of paper to help form the shape of the oyster itself. But I wanted to make sure that I had this not really last chance to create depth, but a good chance to create depth before I started going over it. Now, a lot of that triangle will be covered up with other paper, but I've given myself the opportunity to create depth. And you can see I'm being a little more finicky with the placement of the papers at this point. It's taking me a little bit longer. If I'm being real about how I'm feeling in this moment, is I'm thinking a lot. Am I doing this right? Is the placement of this piece of paper going to ruin the look of the whole thing? I think it's very natural as creatives for us to be hard or judgmental on ourselves, where we would never be that way with someone else. But I'm kind of going through it right now, and you can see it. I am working and responding differently than I have been up to this point in the video. It's natural. It's not wrong. It's not right. It's just what it is. And I just want you to know that everybody goes through this. I think everybody goes through it. And if you don't, please tell me. But another thing I wanted to point out is you can see teeny tiny little bits of some of these colors. So if you look around the oyster, you can see teeny tiny little bits of the aqua blue. You can see teeny tiny little bits of that sort of fluorescent, it's not really fluorescent green, but I'll just call it that. Those itty bitty little bits are what really give a piece character. And if I could give you a recommendation on using itty bitty little bits like that, I want to say a couple things. One, they unify the whole piece if they are well spread out and well dispersed. Number two, To make this really easy, whether you're new at creating with collage or you've been doing it for a long time, if you want little itty bitty bits of highlights throughout, try to work in threes. Try to put them in 3 areas. So like this green piece of paper I'm laying down now, this is the 3rd piece of green that I'm laying down that you can actually see. And they kind of triangulate across the oyster, and it just brings your eye around. It brings your eye through the whole piece. Not just the green ones, the aqua ones do. Like there's different pieces in here that do that. And I just really want to I want you to have fun with what you're working with. And that is a genius way to have fun, is just put little itty bitty bits of your favorite things throughout. And no matter how ridiculous they are, like hot pink and aqua blue on an oyster, somehow they seem to work out. I'm going to try to zoom in soon so you can see in the neck. There's actually the blue and the hot pink in the neck of the oyster also, which makes it a little bit whimsical and a lot of bit cool. This piece of yellow here, I wanted to put in this really bright, intense yellow because I was starting to feel like the values in this were getting a little lost. So I thought I'd use some of the yellow paper. This yellow paper happens to be on mineral paper. So here's what I learned. I love mineral paper. You all know I love mineral paper. It's great for cutting. It's great for tearing if you're doing a large tear. It's terrible for detailed tearing, and I'm just go with me on this. It is. So I fought with it a lot. I'm still fighting with it right now. It wanted to curl up. It wanted to bubble up. If you're going to use the mineral paper, which I do recommend, I would actually cut it, and I don't even like cutting, but this little piece right here, was so frustrating. It took forever to get it to actually lay down the way that I wanted it to. So there's a note for you. Mineral paper is phenomenal and also very challenging if you're going to try to tear it. I have to say, at this point in the collage, I'm feeling the need to stop for the day. I need to let this marinate inside my sketchbook, and I need to let it marinate in my brain before I go further, right? I'm at a great stopping point. I'm going to continue this video very soon, so make sure you're subscribed. And for now, I'm just going to think about it overnight and determine what I need to do next with it. It's okay to stop yourself. It really is. I'm so glad you've been here with me today, and I look forward to seeing you next week.